Recently I was asked about some moment in my life that defined me as a filmmaker. There have been a few, but there's one that stands out way above the rest. It was the day I interviewed the man who bombed Hiroshima. General Paul Tibbets, the pilot of the Enola Gay, dropped the world's first atomic bomb on August 6, 1945, exactly 77 years ago today. Our interview was a chance encounter. It was November 1998. I was in Branson, Missouri, shooting my graduate thesis film Heaven on Earth about evangelical entertainers. Tibbets, his navigator, Captain Theodore Van Kirk, and his bombardier, Major Thomas Ferebee, were passing through town on a book signing tour. At the time, I didn't know how this interview would fit into the film, but I seized the opportunity to interview the man responsible for the instant death of an estimated 70 to 80,000 people. Tibbets was 30 years old when he dropped the bomb, and I was 30 when I interviewed him.
Well, I don't think that I'm a great American hero, if you want to know the truth about it. I'm just one of the ordinary guys that was given a job to do, and we did it damn well. That's the only thing that I can say that I'm happy about. We went in with the second wave of MacArthur's people to occupy. We left the scientists there, but I mean, we went in. We weren't bothered.
You weren't bothered by what you saw?
No. We weren't bothered by what we saw because we knew what devastation was, but it had been cleaned up. We didn't see the dirt. They had, they were good housekeepers. They cleaned right away. As fast as something was messed up, they cleaned it up, made it look as good as they could. But I'm saying, they didn't bother us, they didn't stare at us, they didn't do a darn thing. They just let us, and we wandered around, like I said, a couple of tourists. Buying kimonos and other objects of art that they had in Nagasaki. Today, after 56 years, people have got a lot of ideas, everybody's got a different one. But in those days, we didn't have the ability to really project in our minds what words were given to me by the scientists and so forth and so on. If that's that's the question that you're asking me.
Yes, that's...
Well, hindsight is wonderful. You can come up with all kinds of questions all of these years later. But to think of something like that prior to that time was impossible.
And what was going through your mind at the exact moment that the bomb was released?
Well, like I said, I worked on this thing for almost 11 months. And while we were en route and until that bomb exploded, I was wondering, have I made a mistake anywhere? See, because I held the bag on that one. Nobody else had any authority in doing anything with it except me. And any mistakes that would be made would be my mistakes mostly. See, and that's the only thing I thought about. Have I made a mistake? So when the bombs exploded, I took a breath of relief. I didn't make a mistake.
You did the right thing.
I did the right thing.
Every year around this time, I think back on this interview and try to put myself in Tibbets' shoes. As a pacifist, I condemn his actions, yet I also realize it's impossible for me to put myself in his situation back then. Would I have done the same thing? I didn't realize at the time that this would be the defining moment for me as a documentary filmmaker. It's when I understood that it wasn't my job to judge those in front of my camera. My job was to listen to them and try to understand who they are and why they do what they do, no matter whether I agree with it or not. I'm curious, what would you have done in Tibbets' place back then on August 6th, 1945? 77 years ago today.